Hey guys, and welcome back. This is Note 31, and on this one I want to show you how to find the inverse of a function. Let's go. Hey guys, and welcome back. This is Franck, and if you have not done so yet, go ahead and subscribe to my channel. Today I'm going to show you how to find the inverse of a function. So what is the inverse of a function? If I give you two functions, f of x and g of x, then f and g are said to be inverses of each other if the composite function f of g of x is equal to x, and the composite function g of f of x is equal to x as well. This basically means that the two functions undo each other's action. Let me give you a real example here. So if I were to give you f of x equals to 4x plus 9, and g of x equals to x minus 9 over 4, then if you wanted to verify whether or not these functions are inverses of each other, then all you have to do is check if f of g of x is equal to x and g of f of x is equal to x as well. So starting with f of g of x, this is going to be giving us 4 in parentheses x minus 9 divided by 4 close parentheses plus 9. And as you can see here, the 4 and 4 cancel. What you have is x minus 9 plus 9, and then the 9 cancel, and all we're left with is just x. So this one works out. So let's check out g of f of x. That's going to give us 4x plus 9 in parentheses minus 9 divided by 4. Because remember, f goes in wherever you see x in the g function. And so that will give us, if you cancel 9 and 9, 4x over 4, and then canceling 4 and 4 would give us x. And so because f of g of x is equal to x, and g of f of x is equal to x as well, f and g are in fact inverses of each other. And let me just pick an example here to show you that they actually undo each other's actions. So if I were to find f of negative 2, that would give me 4 in parentheses negative 2 plus 9, which gives me negative 8 plus 9, which is just 1. Now, in theory, if I were to find g of 1, I would go back to negative 2. And so let's see what happens here. So g of 1 equals to 1 minus 9 over 4. That will give us negative 8 on top, 4 on the bottom, and that gives us negative 2. So we are back to square one, right? So these two functions undo each other's action, and so that's why they are inverses of each other. Now, how do you actually find the inverse of a function if you're given one? So let me show you how to do that in 2 steps. The first step is going to be to interchange the input x and the output y, and then solve for y. And whatever expression you get after that is going to represent the inverse of your function. Let me give you an example. So if I were to take the example that we had before, f of x equals to 4x plus 9, how would I find the inverse of this function? All I have to do here is notice that f of x here is just what's standing in for y. So this function is really just y equals to 4x plus 9. So first step here is to interchange x and y. So now you're going to have x equals to 4y plus 9. So wherever you see x, put a y, and wherever you see a y, put an x. Now, technically, this expression here is the inverse function that you're looking for, but traditionally, we like to write a function as y equals something. That's why you have to do step 2 and actually solve for y. So in this case, we're going to have to do minus 9 on both sides. That's going to give us x minus 9 equals to 4y. Finally, divide both sides by 4, and you're going to get x minus 9 over 4 equals to y. And so this expression here, x minus 9 equals 4, is going to be the inverse of the function f of x. And traditionally, the inverse of a function is represented by the name of the function with the negative 1 as a power. So I'm going to write here as f of negative 1 of x equals to x minus 9 divided by 4. So the negative 1 on top of f here means that this is not f itself, but this is inverse. And with that, you're done for this one. Okay, so let me give you another example that we haven't seen before. So if I were to give you the function h of x equals to 2x minus 3 divided by x plus 1, and I ask you to find the inverse of this function, first thing you should do is interchange x and y. So you're going to have here x equals to 2y minus 3 divided by y plus 1. Then you have to solve for y so that we can get this function in its proper form. So first thing first, we have to get rid of the denominator. which means we have to multiply both sides by y plus 1. This would, of course, give us on the left side here x times y plus x times 1 equals to 2y minus 3. And then since we're solving for y, we're going to send all the terms that contains the variable y on one side and everything else on the other. So we're going to get here yx minus 2y equals to negative 3 minus x. Factoring the y variable here is going to give us y in parentheses x minus 2 equals to negative 3 minus x. Then dividing both sides by x minus 2, we are finally obtaining y equals to the inverse of the function h of x is going to be the function h of x to the power of negative 1, which is equal to negative 3 minus x divided by x minus 2. And that will be it. Okay, so before I end this particular video, I want to mention that not every function has an inverse. As you remember, to be a function, you need to pass the vertical line test. And therefore, to be a function that has an inverse that is also a function, you also need to pass the horizontal line test. And so, functions like parabolas do not have inverse. For instance, if I were to give you the function k of x equals to x squared minus 1, and I asked you to find the inverse of this function, you would first have to replace x by y and y by x. And so that's going to give you x equal to y squared minus 1. And so therefore, adding 1 on both sides is going to give you x plus 1 equals to y squared. And finally, we're going to have y equals to plus or minus the square root of x plus 1. And so because of this plus or minus sign here, we can safely say that some of the input x that we plug in are going to have two different outputs. Like for instance, if you were to plug in 3 for x here, you get the square root of 3 plus 1, which is the square root of 4, which is 2. Which means that for the input x equals 3, y would have two different outputs, plus and negative 2. And so this will be too many outputs because we know that to be a function, you have to have at most one output or pass the vertical line test. Therefore, this particular y here is not a function. Therefore, k of x does not have an inverse. And so next time we're going to cover distance, midpoint, and the equation of a circle. And if you like the way I break down this material, give me a thumbs up and I will see you then. Bye-bye.